Ukrainians, a program overview or review, rather. My name is Hannah Messick, but I'm first going to go through, before we do introductions, a couple elements of today's session. This is more of a webinar format where we will be giving information. Therefore, you'll notice that all participants are on mute and that we will be answering pre-submitted questions at the very end of today's session. Following the session today, within about 30 days or so, you'll also receive a formal question and answer to all of the questions that were submitted, but we have selected a handful to respond to during today's session. Please note that the chat has been disabled, as well as the questions box. So if you have questions, go ahead and email those in so we can give you the right answer in due time. A reminder that today's audience in this session is really most designed for service providers. So the session is in English, and you see about a third of those here with us today are from government agencies, usually county staff of some sort, resettlement agencies who are working directly with Ukrainian newcomers, and then a mix of faith-based organizations, community-based organizations, and other agencies assisting newcomers. If you're media, we please ask that you would sign off. And for everybody else, let's get going. So like I said, my name is Hannah Messick. I'm a member of Solvera Consulting, who has been contracted by the California Department of Social Services Refugee Programs Bureau, whom I'll pass it to right now, Naz, State Housing Coordinator, to give some brief opening remarks.
Thank you, Hannah. Good morning, and thank you everyone for joining this really important webinar on the Housing Assistance for Ukrainians program, otherwise known as HAU. Like Hannah said, my name is Nazia Ali. I serve as the Chief of the Quality Assurance and Training Engagement section of the Refugee Programs Bureau within the California Department of Social Services. All refugee housing related programs sit within my section of RPB, as I also serve as the State Refugee Housing Coordinator. The RPB is really proud to have created the HAU program as a second refugee housing support program led by CDSS, second to the Afghan Support and Investment Program, or otherwise known as ASIP. And as housing continues to be a nationwide and statewide crisis, and with the policy and program expectations shifting, we felt it was really important to gather today and share some important information regarding HAU. I'll keep my comments brief, as our expert partners at Solvera will be leading you through the webinar today, but I did want to acknowledge that it has taken a team of hardworking individuals to do the crucial programmatic and policy-related work, as well as all of the technical assistance associated with the refugee housing support programs. I am joined today by our expert partners at Solvera, Hannah, Carrie, and the rest of their team, who will lead you through this webinar and have been providing technical assistance around the state in lots of various ways. I'm also joined by amazing members of the RPB team, including policy and subject matter experts, as well as a new housing specialist and more. And also just wanted to acknowledge and give a special thank you to the many service providers and government agencies on today's call. We know that your ongoing efforts are incredibly important in serving vulnerable newcomer communities and providing important direct services. So thank you for all that you do, and thank you so much for joining today. I'm going to pass it back to Solvera.
Thank you, Naz, and thank you to the RPB team. They are here in the flanks and ready to hop in and provide assistance, not just during this slideshow and webinar today, but really at any time. So thanks for everything that you're doing for them. So a couple topics, let's set some expectations. Today, we're really going to be talking about the agency's responsibilities, really about HAU, what it is, why it exists, and how to engage it. So what documents are needed, what you can expect, how to best navigate the systems depending on who you are as a stakeholder. I do want to mention that we're not going to be doing case-specific information today, not talking about all sorts of all the different opportunities that come up or any of the additional topics that newcomers might have questions about. We do have other webinars though, and we encourage you, we'll put some more information in the chat about how you can join those for Ukrainian newcomers. So after today's session, you're going to be able to articulate the purpose, really identify eligibility criteria. We'll show you a couple samples of what some new forms look like, and be able to locate the closest provider and really easily communicate in a very digestible way some of the information that is necessary to the Housing Assistance for Ukrainian program. So I want to let everybody know that there's a new resource, and this is what I was chatting about. If you go to supportguide.org/HAU, it's something that Solvera has created with the information provided across the state and by RPB. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up and give you a screen demo here. So on the bottom right, you have the opportunity to select if you want the information in Ukrainian. But I really want to highlight here supportguide.org/HAU. And you'll see some screenshots of this website throughout the presentation today, but it's really designed to be a brief, at a glance, very digestible way to understand information about the HAU program, mainly for non-providers, but it's helpful for anybody. So what is it? You've got a quick navigation here as well that'll drop you down further into the page. What is the program? What do you get from it? Where can you get official guidance on that technical side? So let's look at those RCL letters and things like that. For those that are supporting newcomers in applying, a really easy way to understand applications. If you have specific questions, you can get in touch with RPB with their HAU inbox. And then finally, you've got a nice, easy navigator here, depending on what county you live in or all other counties. If you're not in a refugee-impacted county, who's your closest provider? And then if you click this need to escalate button here, it'll directly bring up the email for the county refugee coordinator. So I wanted to give you a peek at this. Not only does it have this HAU information, but if you go further into support guide and general, you'll see webinars, places to sign up for additional supports, guides, maps, things like that. So if you haven't yet, check out supportguide.org. It's a place where there's a lot of resources that we hope you'll find helpful. Additionally, you've got that HAU webpage, and we'll talk a little bit later today about this prep form that we'll provide as well. So today, here's the sections we're going to go through. Let's jump into the overview and purpose. As many of you know, Housing Assistance for Ukrainians, as Naz mentioned, is a program developed by the state to provide that financial support to eligible Ukrainian newcomers. And it's really specifically designed for those that are near a financial crisis, have stopped receiving support from their sponsor, are behind on rent, or facing eviction. Also note that it can support with utilities as well. So what do you get when folks are enrolled? Well, they can receive up to 50% off of rent or utilities and utilities. That could also be a first month's deposit. We know a lot of times a barrier to entering stable housing is those initial costs. And so RPB has made that available as well. What does it look like? Well, you can get up to 6 months or $10,000, whichever comes first. In addition to that, there is light touch case management and a requirement to be enrolled in employment programs. The individuals in a refugee-impacted county, that includes RSS, and for those that aren't, working with their local job center. Again, really emphasizing the goal of this is to support individuals in becoming self-sufficient. So taking a housing first approach, let's make sure everyone has stable housing and really being able to dedicate themselves to job search, integration in the community, and achieving that financial self-sufficiency. It is funded, as you heard, by the California Department of Social Services Refugee Programs Bureau. And these are pass-through funds from the Office of Refugee Resettlement. So it comes from the Office of Refugee Resettlement down to the state, and then the state has allocated it to refugee-impacted counties, and they are implementing it. If you don't live in a refugee-impacted county, you're working with Catholic Charities Diocese of San Diego. On the right side of the screen here, you will see what are those refugee-impacted counties. There are 8 named in this program, and for everybody else, you're working with Catholic Charities. A reminder that this slideshow will be made available to you after the session, as well as a recording. So we know there's questions regarding eligibility. We've heard several of these coming up. So as we talked about, what is it? How does it work? We've seen these questions come up. There's been updated policies. There's been some changes. And so we're going to take some time and really dig into who can apply. Well, anybody can apply, but who is eligible, and what does that mean and look like? So HAU is available to Ukrainian humanitarian parolees, right, who meet all of these criteria. So the first, they're Ukrainian humanitarian parolee or Ukrainian ORR eligible population. They have an active UHP status. Let's say it's not active. They need to be able to demonstrate that it once was active and that they have applied for re-parole, right? And we'll talk in a minute and I'll show you some examples of what that will look like if you're one of the individuals reviewing eligibility documentation. It is not an entitlement program, and so that means you're eligible if you're near a financial crisis. Maybe the individual's no longer receiving the sponsor's financial support, right? They came with the support of a sponsor. That sponsor said, hey, I can't do it anymore. You're on your own. Maybe behind on rent, or maybe have one of those pink slips, an eviction notice. So really they're prioritizing those with the most financial need at the time of application. And finally, they have to be able to provide the requested documentation. That's going to look like maybe a copy of the lease if they already have housing. If not, the units they're looking at could be a bank statement or an affidavit, right? Something that's able to say, hey, these are my assets. And then, of course, a copy of the bill or whatever it is that needs payment. You can learn more by going to the ACWDL letter that's referenced here. We'll also provide more RCL letters later on and in the chat throughout the meeting. Those are going to be the best place to go. But for those of you who speak a little bit more technical language, there's a specific slide here included, really getting to the real specifics. And so what we're looking at again here, there's some, if you've got a child of a caregiver or a parent or a spouse and things like that, there's language specifically laid out on this slide and in the letters that were just posted in the meeting chat about what you're going to be looking for. At large, if you have questions, again, go to your local county refugee coordinator. They're going to be able to help you navigate these elements of eligibility and processes the best, because every county works a little bit differently. But the eligibility is the same across all of California. So really looking for Ukrainian nationals who have an ORR eligible immigration status are eligible. Some common things that come up that the individual is not eligible, right? So we've talked about, yep, you have to have these check marks in order to just be eligible. But now what is it what are you looking at? If someone comes to apply and they have only these elements, they're not eligible. So if they're on TPS only, right? If they're on temporary protected status only, remember that is a status that comes with no real link to benefits. If they've never received UHP status, therefore, if it's lapsed, they're not able to show proof of application for re-parole, right? So those are kind of, as you see there in that gray box, what have to do with the immigration status. So that's just the first clearance. So if only those things apply, it's not going to work. If the individual is receiving any other form of housing assistance. So what does that mean? Well, if they are residing with a sponsor, if they are in Section 8 housing or some other form of subsidized housing, right? Because this is a federal program, they can't be receiving other financial supports as well, or that's kind of the idea of double dipping there. You also cannot currently be enrolled in matching grant. Again, that program is designed to also support housing. Finally, if the individual has the ability to pay rent, so they have the earned income, maybe they have savings, HAU is not designed to be a savings booster, right? It is designed to stabilize and help people out of financial crisis. So if the individual has the means to pay rent, this program is really designed for those in or near financial crisis. The easiest way, I think, to consider, what eligibility components that you're looking for, whether that's you're reviewing it or you're someone who's helping individuals prepare for it, is make sure that you're seeing a copy of their immigration status. So these are the documents that are necessary to process the application. So you have to have active UHP status or proof that you've resubmitted. Next slide will show you what some of those look like. A signed lease agreement or an affidavit, or what you're looking for, right? Or what that first month's rent is going to be. And it needs to include specifics like the landlord or property manager's name, the address, the amount. And if the individual is already in housing, that must also include all family members as occupants on that lease. Finally, a bank statement or some other proof of income, right? The real goal here with bank statement is that would be the gold standard, but an affidavit would also work. Essentially, it needs to be able to show the applicant's current total checking and savings account. Then, depending on which one the individual is applying for, their most recent, if they're on benefits, right, the most recent RCA or CalWORKs to be able to show some of that income, pay stubs, or it could look like a letter from their employer, right? Whatever you might submit as a verification of employment. That copy of that notice or eviction, and then that utility bill. If you've got questions on this, again, you're going to see more information when you receive these slides, but specifically there, you've got a copy of what examples of those would look like down there at the bottom in the links. Finally, for the eligibility documents, one of the things that have happened here is that they can look different. So you'll see a couple snapshots. We've got 2 slides here, or 3 slides about what can it look like. So you have an I-797, which really just says, hey, something has changed on that case's status, or a parole application. So you can look up here in the top right and then read through a little bit about what's happening here. And you see that over here as well. Again, you see here on this 797, what's going on here in the application, right? Ukraine, over here again, the application. Just showing you that this could take a couple different looks. Finally, you may also see that they have a digital, like maybe a screenshot from an online application. And so here, I-131, you've got that receipt number, and you can see more about it. If you've got questions there, feel free to email into hau@dss.ca.gov, or of course, your local USCIS representative would be able to help as well. So you've got your you've supported the individual, you've helped them prepare their documents, or you've let them know what needs to be. Individuals can apply at the local Department of Social Services or Human Assistance Office, depending on where you're located, changes its name a little bit. And if you're not sure, again, contact the refugee coordinator or speak with California, or the Catholic Charities Diocese of San Diego. These are some logos of providers that are currently implementing the HAU program. You can also go to that website we talked about earlier on that left-hand side. Look over here for HAU, Housing Assistance for Ukrainians. Wherever that green dot appears, there's an HAU provider near you. Really want to emphasize what we talked about earlier as far as the eligibility, why this program exists. Again, it is to support self-sufficiency, and it is required for those who are enrolled in housing assistance for Ukrainians, for those who have received some sort of payment with that, to be participating in employment services. So that could be the local RSS programs, that could also be maybe through EDD or American Job Centers. Reminder of what comes with those classes, right? Job readiness, vocational ESL, maybe some different supports and case management and things like that. But really want to emphasize it is required for those receiving HAU to participate in their local employment services. Now, when it comes to best practices, there's a few things that I think all of us can do to best support the process of preparing for helping individuals prepare for, apply, and navigate the system. So depending on who you are, if you're somebody helping someone, if you're a county staff, or you're a supporting agency, there's a way that you can help. To start, as we talked about earlier, you can go to that supportguide.org/HAU website as a quick look. But really what you're doing here is you're helping the individual prepare to apply. So they're going to be looking at that eligibility criteria that we talked about earlier, right? You're a UHP, you have eligible status, you have the documents required, and you're near a financial crisis or no longer receiving support. You're going to look at your local county provider, right? So making sure that you're getting folks to the right spot, and then prepare. And so we've talked about that, right? Locate where to apply, making sure that we're applying in the space nearest to the client. One of the things I want to point out is that we have prepared, every county runs their application process a little bit different. However, the elements on this page here, on the Housing Assistance for Ukrainians, that right side, it is not an application, but it's something that you can work with someone through. And if they have those elements, collect them, write them down, right? All of it's really important information that is necessary that they're going to need to put on an application. If that individual comes with this piece of paper filled out to their intake appointment, that's going to be so helpful for the eligibility worker to go, okay, I know what's happening, right? I've got their case size. I know if they've received housing assistance before. I know what county, all of these pieces. So it's not necessary to use in any way, but I do think it would be helpful. And you'll receive a link to this later as well. But again, the goal there is really, let's help expedite this process and getting those who most need the help, the support. Again, if you're supporting applicants, just a couple reminders. I know I've said this several times, but it bears repeating because we've received a lot of questions about this. So remember, it comes with requirements, right? You have to be participating in employment services. The individual does. They need to be near financial crisis. And also, it bears repeating that it is expensive to live in California. So sometimes there's this misperception of, it's hard to pay rent here. And I think most of us would be able to look at that individual and say, it is, right? And that all of us feel the rising cost of living here. So making sure that you're doing everything you can when working with clients to help them understand, their budget, the expenses of living here, and all the steps that an individual can take to reduce their expenses. Really, really important. Now, if you're a county staff, specifically. Make sure that you have, I would say, as much as you can, memorize the HAU providers. If not, know where to get the information, right? And we've talked about that on that website. RPB's website for this will be soon updated and released as well. Familiarize yourself, know the contact information for your local county refugee coordinator. Make sure that you're sharing and staying up to date on the intake processes and the forms that your specific county is using, and those required activities. So a reminder there that if you're county staff, you still need to, if you're the implementer, you still need to scan in those eligibility forms. You still need to be taking all the required documentation for it. Again, if your county, if you are the administrator as a county staff, please review the policy guidance in detail. If you review that, it answers all of your questions. I can't emphasize enough. If you've already read the RCLs, everything I'm saying is redundant, and I hope that's the case for a lot of us today. Look at those status documentation samples and what those program requirements are, and really make sure you know where and how to case note for the sake of program compliance and through the duration of a client's HAU period with the county. Also, if you've not worked with Ukrainians before, recognizing that you serve a massive population and that Ukrainian newcomers are just this little bit of it, I really recommend going to the supportguide.org webinars and watching this specifically, this cultural considerations webinar. It has a great background and history of the area in Ukraine, what's happening currently, and then some best practices for even just how you can help someone feel more at ease as they come into your office, right? Ways to say hello, ways to say, I'm glad you're here, right? Things to really help individuals as they come in and navigate what is a really complex and sometimes intimidating experience. So if you have not yet, please check that out. Now, we have about a third of you on the call are not resettlement agency staff, so you're not those that are supporting others in applying in that way, and you're not a county staff. And so for those that are from faith-based organizations, ethnic community-based organizations, and things like that, one of the best things you can do is get really specific with the individual that you're helping. Get really curious, ask good questions about what's happening, right? We've seen before that individuals, maybe a client has been working with a community member and they've said, you know, my landlord said I'm going to be evicted if I don't pay rent. And then that individual comes and says, this individual is going to be evicted. Oh no. But had we paused and asked just one more question in that initial interaction, it's true. Any of us would be evicted if we don't pay rent, right? But that doesn't mean that they received an eviction notice. Let's also remember that for most of these individuals, English is not their first language, and that there can be nuance, there can be all sorts of things. So really get curious, making sure that we communicate the expectations of the program early and often. And again, just because you're eligible does not mean that just because the individual is eligible does not mean that they are entitled to the funds. 2, all assets need to be disclosed. So sometimes we'll see individuals maybe shielding certain parts of what they have access to, if their savings or different things, in order to make themselves appear maybe more in need. So really emphasizing to those that you're working with, hey, we really need to tell the truth about everything we have, you know, everything that you have here. Third, the individual must participate in employment services, right? And they need to regularly remain in communication with their employment service provider. And if that's not the same as the agency that provided their housing assistance, then they need to be in regular communication with both of those entities. Take your time, explain the entire process, that there's an eligibility, an application process that has to be reviewed, and it could take a while. So if someone's going into an appointment and expecting to receive money as they walk out, that might not and likely won't be what happens. The other thing to remember here is that these payments are often made to the property manager or to the landlord whenever possible. That is the preference here. Again, familiarize yourself with your county's providers, know the email address of your local county refugee coordinator, and do everything you can to provide accurate and timely information to those that you're working with. And also recognize that you need to have a list of other available housing supports. So not everybody's going to be eligible. And of those that are eligible, they might not be admitted into the program. And so be ready to have other housing resources. HAU is not the only form of support out there. So you can go to Support Guide, you can go to 211, depending on the county you're living in. The county's websites often have really specific resources available to clients as well. So there's community service block grant, there's local housing, there's list of low income units, all sorts of ways beyond HAU that you can support an individual. So just remember, HAU is not the only program out there. And if they're not admitted, there's other opportunities for them to receive support with rent and utilities. Speaking of that, if you haven't worked within the social service field before, or maybe needed to navigate different forms of support, these two webinars here, Accessing Subsidies and Getting Help in the First Years, are two spaces that really go into depth about what's available for newcomers. Where is housing assistance available? How do I get a free phone? Who does what in the county, right? There's state, there's county, there's these other agencies. So these two webinars specifically will go into more detail about what are those systems and how do you help individuals based on where they are and what they're eligible for. There's also a series of shorts on there that was made with Nova Ukraine in Ukrainian about how to apply for benefits. They're about 6 minutes long, and they're in Ukrainian about how to apply for different things. So we really encourage you to take advantage of those. Finally, we're going to move into some of the questions and answers. Again, these are pre-submitted questions, or they're questions that have come that we've received continuously and want to be able to address with you. We've broken them, or we've separated them into 5 different categories. As a reminder, we're going to put these up on screen. You'll have access to this after today. And then you see here on the right, we are going to be releasing with RPB a housing assistance for Ukrainians question and answer. And we're excited to be able to share that with you once it's available. So let's start with eligibility. So the question here that we've gotten before, hey, are all Ukrainians or UHPs entitled to HAU, right? So if you're eligible, can you be receiving it, right? Everybody needs help paying rent in California. Well, the answer here, and I'm going to read it through with you, is no. HAU is not an entitlement program. It is a supportive services program. Potential clients will need to work with an HAU administrator through one of the 8 refugee-impacted counties or Catholic Charities Diocese of San Diego to determine if they're eligible for HAU. Clients determined to be eligible for the HAU program will be considered for housing assistance based on the immediacy of their housing needs and their current level of instability. This is determined based on things like the client's household attributes at the time of application. Counties administering HAU are advised to create a matrix of these attributes to determine the level of vulnerability and need, with a focus on distributing assistance to clients with the greatest need. One other thing I want to point out here is that you see on the top here, question number and page. That's going to be referencing the FAQ to come out in the future that will support this presentation. So in short, just because you're eligible does not mean that the individual will be receiving HAU. So this question comes from the perspective of a potential client regarding eligibility. And so they say, hey, I currently live in an apartment that is considered an affordable housing unit. Am I eligible for HAU? And if not, why? So again, HAU was created to assist eligible Ukrainians and UHPs with housing needs following the displacement of so many Ukrainians during the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. HAU assistance cannot be combined with other housing subsidy supports as outlined in RCL 2303. Other housing subsidy supports, commonly referred to as low-income housing or affordable housing, maybe Section 8, are considered government and/or any other sponsored economic assistance aimed towards lessening housing costs for qualified individuals. Applicants who are currently receiving government and/or other sponsored housing support are ineligible for HAU assistance. Should their current housing circumstances change, though, they may be able to reapply for HAU at that time. So if you're currently living in sponsored or officially low income or Section 8 housing, the individual is not eligible. But as always, if the circumstances or the conditions that that individual is experiencing change, reach back out to the county, reach back out to that implementer. Moving forward to verification. So questions around what needs to be provided, how does that verification work? So this is from the perspective of an implementing HAU provider. And the question is, what am I required to tell a client if it's determined they are ineligible for HAU? And the response really is tell them the truth and refer them to other housing and support resources for their area. One of the things that they can go to is supportguide.org/HAU. We've got a resource finder on there that they can sort by county. We've also have that map on there as well, so they can look at housing resources in their area. Question here that we've received several times as well is, can a client receive HAU if they're employed? Yeah, no, it's possible. So yes, but it also depends on the client's monthly income. So here's an example for us to work through. For instance, if the client makes $10,000 a month from employment, their ability to afford rent must be considered. It is up to the service provider to determine the client's financial eligibility. Note that the primary applicant is employed. They do not need to participate in employment services, as a pay stub or employment verification will fulfill those employment requirements. It's always important to ensure that proper documentation is reflected in that client's file. So once again, working with that service provider, it's at their discretion, working with the individual's current status, needs, and other household characteristics. But being employed alone does not disqualify an individual. All right, so let's say we've determined that the individual is eligible, they've applied, and now they're to the point of how does the money get to the individual, right? The question here, can HAU payments be made directly to a client? So HAU financial assistance may be paid directly to the landlord or client. However, counties should inform the clients that receiving direct payments for HAU may affect the amount of public assistance they receive, as direct assistance may be considered a source of income. RPB strongly recommends payments be made directly to landlords whenever it's feasible for them to do so. So really here, the recommendation is pay the vendor on the client's behalf whenever possible to avoid those kinds of circumstances. So whenever possible, pay directly to that utilities company or that property manager on behalf of the client. Another question here with payments and kind of the support details happening about the 6 month, right? You heard me say earlier, 6 months, up to 6 months, or $10,000, whichever comes first. So we've received questions about, can clients receive 6 months of consecutive support or 6 instances of assistance? So the question there is really about a timeline. Is it 6 instances over a longer period or 6 consecutive months? While HAU administrators may provide 6 instances of assistance, RPB strongly recommends HAU assistance be dispersed in consecutive 6 month sequence to promote stability and enable clients to focus on becoming employed and working towards self-sufficiency during that 6 month period. But do keep in mind that funding is limited for the HAU program, and a client may come back at a later date requesting HAU assistance when funds are no longer available. Thus, RPB strongly recommends consecutive assistance for those who demonstrate the most need, but has given autonomy to county administrators based on individual client circumstances. So the real response here, in short, is it's best practice and recommended to provide 6 consecutive months of assistance based on that client's need, but the counties have some autonomy in that. Final question regarding payment and support details. So, if you're an administrator of public benefits, this might sound familiar. Does the HAU amount change if their household size or income changes? So does the amount the individual gets change if their family size changes or their income changes? And the answer here is HAU rental assistance is determined during the application process by the program administrator. Assistance is determined based on the immediacy of an applicant's housing needs and the level of instability according to their household attributes at the time of application. The list of attributes, as outlined in RCL 2303, should be used when determining the duration and amount of household subsidy. Counties are encouraged to evaluate household attributes in the individual circumstances on a case-by-case basis, in line with their existing procedures and processes to ensure subsidy amounts and durations are equitable and appropriate to household needs. So again, for those in the county and those administrators, make sure that you are reading the refugee county letters, specifically 2303 and the following erratums that provide great and detailed information on these topics. Coming into the last two questions here, this one on administrative and procedural parts of HAU. So the question is, hey, what do I, a county staff, need to do to access HAU funds for a client? For applicants located in refugee non-impacted counties, right? So not those 8 that we talked about before. They can reach out directly to CCDSD at hau@ccdsd.org. For the following refugee-impacted counties, which is Alameda, Los Angeles, Orange County, Sacramento County, Stanislaus, San Diego, San Francisco, and Santa Clara, applicants and service providers can reach out to their local county coordinator for information about how to provide financial assistance for those HAU applicants. And finally, who should we contact if we're recognizing trends and issues? So if you are anybody, right, doesn't matter who you are, if you're seeing, maybe you're working with clients and you're seeing, hey, the same thing kind of keeps happening and I don't understand why. Or, this client received a denial for their HAU application, but you're looking at it, you've been on this webinar, you've read the RCLs and you understand the program and you think, maybe maybe there was a mistake, right? Or maybe something keeps happening. The best thing that you can do is, if you're in a refugee impacted county, reach out to your local county refugee coordinator. If you're seeing trends, if you're seeing issues, if you've got something that you want to raise, reach out to your local county refugee coordinator. We've got the link to that specifically right on the HAU support guide site. You can go need to escalate, click that, and it'll go directly to their local county refugee coordinator. Otherwise, all are welcome to reach out to CDSS at rpb@dss.ca.gov. If it's specific about HAU, you can go to hau@dss.ca.gov. I want to provide those email addresses one more time here as we wrap up and look at the, after this session, you're going to get a link to the slides and you'll get the reference links as well that we've been adding to the chat here. Again, if you have additional questions or want more clarification or you have a specific case that you're not quite sure how to navigate and you want another set of eyes on, talk to your local county refugee coordinator. You can email hau@dss.ca.gov. If you've got questions about support guide and the HAU site there, you can email the Solvera team at uhpinfo@solveraconsult.com. And finally, RPB's HAU webpage they're putting some new information on it. They're really adding some great content. And so it will be coming up soon. So go ahead and bookmark that webpage there, cdss.ca.gov/Ukraine/resources/HAU. So that's going to be your best spot to go. It's not quite live yet, but we expect it to be live here in a week or two. Finally, before this time next month, you will receive the formal frequently asked questions, of which we selected just a few of the most common to address today. But we have about 20 questions or so that we will be responding to, or rather that RPB will be responding to and sharing out. If you have questions, again, you see Annalie there in the chat, hau@dss.ca.gov. And questions about support guide can come over to UHP info. So to summarize, as we come into our last few minutes in today's session, best things that you can do to be successful, really ask what the client's goals are. Because remember, the client's goals and the agency's requirements or goals could be different. And so the individual might come in saying, I need HAU, I need HAU. And that could be really true. Because however, it could just be, I need housing assistance. I need help paying for utilities. And we know that there's multiple ways to do that, HAU being one of them. Again, be as patient as you can. Check those expectations that you have and that the client has. Request those eligibility documents. Make sure that you're getting those in the case file and scanned in. Communicate regularly. And finally, advocate. If something came up, if a mistake was made, bring it up. And let's be ready to make it right. Finally, if you are an HAU implementer or administrator, please take the time to communicate specifically with client advocates and ethnic community-based organizations and community-based organizations, remembering that a lot of these community-based organizations sprang up, groups of concerned individuals supporting Ukrainian newcomers as the war broke out, and they've not worked in the social service field before. They're not familiar with our kind of alphabet soup language, ECBOs and RSS and ORR and RPB and these things. So take your time, communicate fully, the full language and what it means as well, and take time to reinforce elements, and whenever needed, look back at those RCL letters. They really have the information. So first, go to the RCL letters if you still have questions. Go to your local implementer if you still have questions. Go to your local county refugee coordinator. I will pause for a moment and see if our colleagues at RPB would like to share any additional notes. or information. Okay.
I think we're good, Hannah. Thank you so much for covering all of that.
Thank you, Annalie. Remember, everybody, take a look at that chat. You've got great websites, links in here, as well as email addresses. It's likely that you might have had some questions that came up during this presentation. And so we really want to make sure that you get answers to those. So again, hau@dss.ca.gov is going to be your best spot. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you have a great rest of your Tuesday, and hope to see you on some more webinars. Take care and have a good one.